Okay, we'll begin the meeting. If everybody will stand for the invocation and then the pledge. Lord, please bless this meeting and the participants. Let the commission be guided by your wisdom to make fair and honest decisions in the best interest of the citizens of Canby. Allow for everybody to who is here this evening get home safely. In your name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Wow, this is an overflow crowd for us this evening. Usually we get nobody. So welcome everybody. The first thing is citizen input on non-agenda items. Are there any of you that would like to speak on items that are not on our agenda? Okay. Then I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from December 12th and January 9th. We have to do that separately, so I assume that everybody's had a chance to read the minutes of the December 12th meeting on our new fancy iPads here, which I received mine this afternoon. As a caveat, I will put out there that I am a low-tech guy in a high-tech world, so wow, I'm stepping right up here. So can I have a motion to approve the minutes from December 12th?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from December 12th, 2016.
I second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And then now I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the January 9th Planning Commission meeting.
Mr. Chair, I recommend that we approve the minutes from the January 9th Planning Commission meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Now we will consider a public hearing, consider a request for a lot line adjustment and minor partition to adjust the size of two existing parcels and then create two new parcels involving property at 623 and 595 North Knott Street. That would be Olson Pierce, LLA 16-09, MLP 16-04. The matter presently before the hearing body requires a public hearing. All interested persons in attendance shall be heard on the matter. If you wish to testify on this matter, please be prepared to step forward to the microphone at the appropriate time. State your name, mailing address, and interest in the matter. For those people other than the applicants that are interested in testifying as either proponents or opponents, please sign in on the sheet or speak up when we call for testimony. For longer presentations, proponents and opponents may buy time from one another. In so doing, those either in favor or opposed may allocate their time to a spokesperson who will represent the entire group. You may be limited by time for your presentation. Generally, the applicant will have a total of 15 minutes to speak. The proponents will be given 5 minutes each. The opponents will be given 5 minutes each, and those thought to be neutral on the matter will be given 5 minutes each. The applicant will then have 10 minutes for a rebuttal. All questions must be directed through the chair. Any evidence to be considered must be submitted to the hearing body for public access and to become a part of the record. All written testimony received both for and against prior to the hearing shall be summarized by staff and presented briefly to the hearing body during the staff report. Testimony and evidence must be directed toward the applicable review criteria contained as indicated in the staff report, the comprehensive plan, or the applicable land use regulations which the person believes to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government to respond to the issue may preclude an action for damages in circuit court. Everyone present is encouraged to testify, even if it is only to concur with previous testimonies. And I would encourage you, if you are going to testify, to fill out one of these little white slips, which are located, I believe, in the back. There you are. So at this time, I would ask that any member of the hearing body who has a conflict of interest to please indicate the nature and extent of the conflict and whether you intend to participate in or abstain from the hearing, from hearing the present matter.
Mr. Chair, I live within 200 feet. I submitted a comment form on this application. I'm going to abstain because I cannot give a unbiased vote.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. I am a neighbor and good friend of Ellen Olson, who will be testifying on this matter. And since I don't have a vote, I am not going to recuse myself at this time. Also, if any member of the hearing body has had any ex parte contact with anyone prior to this hearing, including a visit to the site, please declare the nature and extent of such contact at this time.
Again, I live within 200 feet. I walk by there every day when I walk my dog, and I'm friends with Lyle Olson. So again, I'm abstaining.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Does any member of the audience have any questions for any commissioner regarding conflict of interest or ex parte contact? Okay, the public hearing will be conducted as follows. First, we'll have the staff report, and then questions, if any, by the commissioners. Then I will open the public hearing for testimony. The applicant, not more than 15 minutes. Proponents, not more than 5 minutes each. Opponents, not more than 5 minutes each. And neutral, not more than 5 minutes each. Rebuttal by applicant, not more than 10 minutes. At that time, I will close the public testimony, and there will be questions, if anybody by us. Then we will discuss and deliberate, and no additional testimony will be allowed by the chair. The decision shall be made by the hearing body at the close of the hearing, or the matter will be continued to a date certain in the future. This will be the only notice of that date that you will receive. Does anybody have any questions about the procedure outlined for this hearing? Okay. Brian.
Thank you very much. Really kind of neat to see you looking at your light. I didn't check to see if they're actually turned on. To rush out of the booth because I didn't turn my mic on. This request tonight before us is rather simple, although it really confused me. So I'm going to try not to confuse you. So the best way to think of it is two separate applications, a lot line adjustment and a minor partition. A lot line adjustment by itself would not normally come before you. It's an administrative approval as long as I feel comfortable doing that. And I would have in this case, but it makes sense for it to come forward since there was a minor partition involved in order to explain what's happening, since you do review the minor partition. So what we're dealing with is two existing lots, and if you take the minor partition, which adjusts a property line between those two lots, it's moving the lot line northward to make the northern lot smaller, which is occupied by an existing house, and then leaves a much larger lot on the south. Then the minor partition application kicks in, and takes the larger lot that's to the south that's vacant, and it creates 3 lots. And a minor partition cannot create any more than 3 lots. If it's more than that, it becomes a subdivision by definition in state statute. So that's basically what's happening here. The applicants, the Pierces, plan on constructing a home site on one of the 3 lots that are being created. And then the southernmost lot, as you can see looking on the map, is against, see if my thing even works. It has the high-density zoning down here in this yellow, and the area up here is R1 zoning. And so they're contemplating the possibility that there could be a rezone at some point that extends that R2 zoning onto one of the lots, because that would actually be in conformance with the comprehensive plan. But that's a possibility. So the immediate plans is the construction of one additional home on one of the new lots created. The northern, of the 3 lots that will be created on the southern tract, the northern lot, if it's my understanding, is another possible lot for the owner of the lot that has the existing house on it to do as he pleases with that at some time in the future, whether he builds another house or sells it to somebody that could build another house on there. This is the drawing that explains the new lot boundaries and where they're going to be and such. And probably the only thing that's a little different in this is that there is a normal 60-foot minimum lot width in the R1 zone. These lots are meeting the minimum size requirement, and they're all just a few inches shy of that 60-foot lot width. And in your report, we've indicated that there is some discretion on the Planning Commission's part, although we don't look at this kind of request very often. It's up to you to determine if you feel like the configuration of the lots and the street that they're fronting on provides an adequate means of access. And that's basically what the criteria says in the code. And so staff was of the opinion that in this particular case, the being able to create these 2 additional lots and having the only obstacle in doing that being a few inches in access along the street was not something that we needed to be that concerned about. We feel like normal driveways will be accessing these lots for home sites. They're meeting the normal lot size standards. They're reasonable for the particular area. And so we think you could make a findings that it's appropriate and adequate access is available for these lots as they're configured before you. Creating this many additional lots on North Knott Street, I think I got the street right, move so many of these. Yes, it's not. There wasn't any traffic analysis or study done. There's plenty of capacity on this particular local street to handle 2 or 3 additional homes and possibly even more units if that southern lot is rezoned at some point in the future. But there would be some sort of traffic study if a rezoning was to take place for that particular lot. Other than that, let me think if there was anything else I wanted to mention. There's 2 things that the applicant's going to have to be aware of, maybe 3 things that are relatively important. Because This is an already platted area. It's part of Sorensen addition. In order to implement any possible approval tonight, there will be a partition plat filed of record to make these lots officially available for sale. And before that plat can be done, the lot line adjustment has to be completed. And so we're indicating that it's our understanding that they may be doing two different plats, filing two different plats to make this happen. We think the county is going to probably require them to do the lot line adjustment, file new deeds for those created lots, and possibly even a plat to initiate the lot line adjustment, and then turn around at the same time and follow up with a new replat, is probably what it would be, to create the other three lots that they're asking approval for the minor partition. So that's something the applicant's going to have to work out with the county, but that's how we think it's going to happen. And so we've explained that in the report. And we also mentioned in terms of the conditions of approval, and all I have listed here on this slide are those that are unique to this particular application. If you look at your staff report, I think there's 22 conditions or so, but most of those are standard that helps the applicant through the implementation process. And these have to do with the fact that they will be, the homes that might be built on these lots that will be created will be subject to the residential design standards. That's any of the lots we create through our new subdivisions that you've been a part of, they all are subject to those residential design standards. And some people aren't aware we have those, so we just mention them here. And then condition number 3 is that because there are existing homes that likely fall within 25 feet of the boundary lines of these lots that have homes that have been there for more than 5 years, and if the lots that are being created have those existing homes and they're single-story homes, and there's 2 of them adjacent to the lots being partitioned, they're going to be subject to the infill requirements that are in our code that could limit or restrict how they might do a 2-story house by having a step-up height standard to set that bulk back from the normal setbacks. And so we've indicated that condition of approval in here, so when they come back in later for a building permit, they'll be aware that they could be subject to that step-up height standard. And it can be evaluated for each of the individual lots at that time to be sure that there's 2 homes that are abutting that lot that have a house within 25 feet that's over 5 years old. That's how the code reads. The last 2 conditions we've discovered were copied from a flag lot arrangement partition and don't apply with all lots fronting on the public street. So should you want to approve this evening, feel like it meets all the criteria, then I would ask you to approve it subject to staff's recommended conditions of approval except for conditions 4 and 5. So we did recommend that the Planning Commission approve this request subject to those conditions except for 4 and 5 that are in the staff report. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to help you with those.
Do you have any questions? All righty then, let's move forward with the applicant. Mr. Olson.
Chair, members of the committee, my name is Alan Olson. I am the owner of Custom Construction Services, and I represent Steve and Patricia Pierce and Lyle and Donna Pierce. I actually built Lyle and Donna Pierce's house several years ago. quite a little interesting piece of property in this subdivision on the Sorensen addition. When they laid out the two lots, tax lot 11 and tax lot 12, they made the total footage 238.24 feet. Well, if you wanted to get 60-foot lots, it should have been 240 feet. So as you can see, we're just a tad short. Lyle, on the north lot, which would be 623, which is the upper house that's existing, has 131.77 feet. So we want to take 12.27 feet off of that to give him a total of 119.5 feet. And that would be a 60-foot lot and a 59.6. Now, if you look at the map, I actually, in this technological age, screwed up. That should read 59.5 feet, not 59.6, because I did it in decimals, and so it's off by 2 inches. Each lot that says 59.6 should be 59.5, which would be 59 feet, 6 inches. That would still give you lots over 7,000 feet. And we felt the criteria that would be most important to meet would be the 7,000 square foot lot criteria. And to do that, then we added the 59.24, you'd add 4 inches or 0.2 of a foot onto that, which would be 59.44. That would be a 59-foot, 5¼ inch lot. So it's 3/4 shy of the 6. We just didn't have enough room to make it all work. With the moving of the lot line, it allowed my clients, Patricia and Stephen Pierce, to have 2 lots that were buildable, and one, which is the north end of the second lot, which is lot 12, would be 595 North Knott Street, which is where they want to build their home. And they will keep the second lot for future consideration, and that is down the road several years. And Lyle and Donna don't want to do anything with that lot at all. They park their motorhome out there. They have a garden and an extra existing building out there, so that's their bigger yard. So what that does, though, for the neighborhood, it actually fills in 2 big vacant areas that were never used, and it hadn't been used for years, and it really completes the subdivision. And I think it would behoove this commission to pass this with the agreements that were made and provided for by the city, that we take care of those 3 issues, and then that city street can be completed. And then at that time, maybe the city might look at the end of Knott Street where it's just a half road instead of a full road. Maybe the city might finish that full road. That's just a little sidebar. But that's how this worked out, and that's how we got to this situation, and we're willing to meet all the requirements that are necessary. It has utilities in the street all available. All utilities, when we put in the electrical, we will run conduit from the transformer that's there, which is adequate to handle 3 new homes. We will run conduit to each lot so it's available, so it doesn't have to be dug up at a later time. We'll run the water and everything at the same time, so we'll get it all done at once. So when we do the street cut, we'll repair the street and it won't have to be cut again.
Any questions for Mr. Olson? Thank you very much. Are there any other proponents that would like to speak on this matter? Are there any opponents? Anybody that is neutral that would like to render an opinion? And since there's none of that, then there's no need for rebuttal. So I'm going to close the public testimony. So are there any questions for the hearing body before we deliberate and take a vote? Okay. Then I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I will motion to approve 1609, MLP 1604, with the staff's recommendations, except for, is it 4 and 5, Brian? Except for 4 and 5.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's approved. There you go. Thanks. Thank you very much. We will now move on to new business. And so we will have a presentation of Transit Choices Report, a critical decision point in the planning process for updating the Canby Area Transit Master Plan. And I guess I don't have to read the,
No, it's not a public
okay, so I
hearing.
didn't think so. So who's going to make that presentation? And you are?
I am Michelle Poirot. I am a transit network planner, and I am working for Canby Area Transit, Julie and Nancy sitting there. And I'm here to explain to you about some key choices for Canby Transit. And perhaps it was misleading when I offered that text for your agenda, a critical decision point. That makes it sound like a bunch of things have been happening and now we're at the point. This is actually the debut of the information and the choices report. So you're seeing it first.
So critical would be a misnomer.
It is critical, and it is a decision, but it is not at a point tonight,
Okay.
I should say.
Then let's forge
But
ahead.
that's also for anyone in the audience, if you're just hearing about this, well, so are they, and so is everybody else. Tonight's the debut of this information, so. Let me just get my presentation set up, see if this works. It does, wonderful. Okay, so as I said, my name is Michelle Poirot. I'm a transportation planner. Specifically, I'm a public transit planner, and I specialize in designing public transit services like routes and networks and dial-a-ride and things like that. But I also specialize in helping communities think about those transit choices to which there is no correct answer. The choices on which reasonable people can disagree, and do disagree. Those are the really difficult choices to make in transit planning, and they relate to people's values. And so when we put together a report like this and we call it a choices report, it's because we want to draw your attention to those choices, the choices that are really about a community's values, so that you can think about them and then come to your own opinion about what is best for Canby. So I passed out to you a paper copy of the report. Now that I know you all have iPads, maybe I shouldn't have given you a paper copy of the report. If you decide you don't want your paper copy, you're excited.
Love paper.
He's excited. If you don't want your paper copy, just set it somewhere obvious and I'll collect it again and give it to somebody else. This report, it's not yet on the CAT website, but it's going to be in a day or two. So you'll be able to download a PDF there and read it online. Okay. So here's the agenda for my little presentation today. I want to introduce you to some information about existing conditions, how CAT Transit is performing today. I want to draw your attention to these key choices for Canby, key choices about the future of transit in Canby. And then to help you think about those choices, I'm going to show you 3 alternative visions for the future. So, existing conditions. CAT Transit today runs a couple different services, and I'm going to remind you what they are. One of them is fixed route transit. So when we say fixed route transit, we mean a transit vehicle that runs basically the same route over and over again. It goes to the same stops that are in the same places over and over again. It does that on a schedule, so it's predictable. That's a fixed route. And CAT has one of these. It's called, Route 99. And it goes from Oregon City down to Woodburn. There's more service between Canby and Oregon City and a little less between Canby and Woodburn. But the route basically does the whole highway corridor. There's also another fixed route coming into Canby from Wilsonville. That's provided by the city of Wilsonville. That's Route 3. And Malala Transit also provides some fixed routes that come into Canby. Here's a map showing that. The dark red line on Highway 99, that's Route 99, goes from Oregon City to Woodburn. Those blue lines, that's the Wilsonville system, so you can see that L-shaped route that comes down to Canby. And then we have those long green lines in the lower right-hand corner. Those are the Malala routes that also come to Canby. But again, the only one of these that's provided by Canby is that red line, the Route 99. Canby Area Transit also provides paratransit. So paratransit is anywhere to anywhere within the Canby urban growth boundary, which you know what that is, Paratransit is also provided to certain Oregon City destinations. But the only people who are eligible to use paratransit are people who have a disability that prevents them from riding a fixed route. Paratransit is legally provided. You must provide paratransit. It's not optional. It's required by federal law, and you're legally required to provide it around your local fixed route bus services, transit services.
So along 99.
So, this is sort of an interesting question. What is the local fixed route service in Canby for which paratransit is provided? This is now a little zoomed-in map of Route 99. The green segments are considered express, and you are not required to provide paratransit around express. The blue segment is considered local, and you are required to provide paratransit around local. So Canby's legal obligation to provide paratransit to people with disabilities arises from that blue segment of Route 99. And the difference between a local and an express route is really in the nuances. It's, are the stops close together? How fast does the bus go? How much frequency is there? This is one single route. I don't mean to imply that someone rides the green route and gets off and transfers to the blue route. It's just that the segments are categorized differently for basically regulatory purposes.
So that I'm clear, do you mind if I interrupt?
Absolutely, I'm happy to take questions.
So I'm curious as to, it says Canby Market Center. I'm going to hurt my neck if I turn around and look at that. So Canby Market Center, what is the intersection there?
That is Redwood?
It's Sequoia.
Sequoia, thank you.
Fred Meyer.
Fred Meyer,
Fred Meyer.
okay, down to Canby Square, which is
Safeway.
Safeway. Okay.
And Canby Transit Center is basically where we are right now. So there's another reason that Canby provides paratransit. So part of Canby's paratransit is tied to this local segment of Route 99. Like if that weren't there, if it were all an express route, there would be no obligation to provide paratransit, then it would be an option. The other reason Canby is obliged to provide paratransit is because Canby has made a deal with TriMet, hearkening back when Canby removed itself from the TriMet service district, which is that Canby will bring people who have disabilities to certain destinations in Oregon City directly, rather than meeting the TriMet paratransit bus at the transit center in Oregon City and having TriMet take them to those destinations. So Canby and TriMet have made a deal. So anyway, Canby provides paratransit within the UGB in Canby and also to certain Oregon City destinations.
Be a cat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, one seat ride, without a transfer to TriMet. Now, if you want to go to West Lynn from Canby, and you're eligible for paratransit, you would actually transfer to TriMet's Lyft service at the Oregon City Transit Center, and TriMet will take you the rest of the way. So it's only Oregon City that people can go straight there on CAT. They don't have to transfer to TriMet. Now, there's another service that Canby Area Transit provides, which is very similar to paratransit, and it is called Dial-A-Ride. Dial-A-Ride is anywhere to anywhere within the service area, which is the Canby UGB. As with paratransit, you have to make an advanced reservation. I think I forgot to mention that. You call ahead and make a reservation. Dial-A-Ride, however, is open to anyone. It is open to the general public. I can ride Dial-A-Ride. Anybody can ride Dial-A-Ride. As long as you are willing and able to make an advanced reservation, it's there for you during the hours that it's offered, which is 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And Dial-A-Ride is not required by law. Dial-A-Ride is just a transit service that you may or may not provide based on what your community wants. So the important difference here is the legal basis. In practice, Dial-A-Ride users and paratransit users are riding on the same buses together, and they're often going to the same place together. So Canby's not putting them on separate vehicles, but the legal basis, the sort of policy basis for providing these two services is different. Finally, I should mention many Dial-A-Ride users might have a disability that would qualify them for paratransit, but if you live in a community that already has Dial-A-Ride, there's no reason to bother getting qualified for paratransit. You have to apply and so on, because the Dial-A-Ride is there for you. So.
Is that a duplication of services?
Not exactly, but ask me that question again in a couple slides. How about that? So then here's a little picture of how these services are being used, and I'm sorry the screen is so light. If you look at that map on the TV screen in front of you, you see that little black school symbol, that's the high school. And then the darkest north-south line you can see is Ivy Street, so maybe that helps you orient. The green dots on this map are customers who would be eligible for paratransit, customers with a disability. The purple dots are general public customers. And what we see is, we see a lot of people, and I should say the dots are scaled for how many people are getting on and off at that location on average each day. So you can see there's a big dot by the Fred Meyer. There are big dots down near Hope Village and at the Senior Center. And there are lots of little dots right near the center of downtown, lots and lots of little dots. So people going to downtown, many different places sometimes. And then we have some green dots up on Redwood, north of the highway. And by the way, I should mention, this is on page 34, I should have said that sooner, of your paper copy. So if you want to get the colors right, you can look at it there. So we see a little bit of a difference in where customers want to go based on whether or not they have done the paperwork and say they have a disability. But also, more importantly, we can just see where people want to go on the Dial-A-Ride and paratransit services together, which is to and from senior locations and to and from large grocery stores and also to and from downtown.
Excuse me, on Dial-A-Ride, then somebody, up on the northern portion, I guess, one of the little green dots would call Cat and say, I'd like you to come pick me up, and somebody would go pick them up. Is that how that works?
Yeah, you normally have to make a reservation a day in advance. Now, space permitting, sometimes you can ask with less time in advance than that, but generally you have to call the day before and say, I'd like to go tomorrow to the Safeway in the afternoon. Can I go at 2? And they'll say yes, or maybe they'll say, oh, could you go at 2:15? Because what they'd like to do is they'd like to get you on a bus with someone else who's going the same direction, because that's more efficient. But so you call a day in advance, but yes, that's largely how it is.
And paratransit works in the same manner?
Yep, it works the same way for paratransit. The difference between Dial-A-Ride and paratransit in this area of operations is, with paratransit, there is a limit to how often you can tell people that no, you cannot take them at that time. So maybe someone calls and they say, I'd really like to go to the dentist at 10 a.m. tomorrow, but you look at your schedule and it's like, ooh, all our buses are taking other people other places. We can't take you to the dentist at 10 a.m. tomorrow. You can say, I'm sorry, we can't take you then. Could we take you at 11:30? Could we take you in the afternoon? With paratransit, there is a limit to how much you can say no, because it's a legal obligation to provide paratransit. You cannot be capacity constrained. That's the technical term. With Dial-A-Ride, because it's open to the public and it's an optional thing to provide, you can be capacity constrained. You can essentially be first come, first serve. I'm sorry, all of our buses are busy at that time, we can't take you. We can take you at some other time. And there's no limit to how much you can tell people no if the bus is already full. This really matters, by the way, for the end of my presentation, which is why I'm going into such detail. So thank you for asking the question.
So somebody, I'm looking at this map here, so somebody, and the streets aren't marked, but let's just say that somebody way out in the further edges of the urban growth boundary, one of the little green dots, the disability. So we would send a bus out to that, and it doesn't matter how many other people are on the bus, that bus would go specifically to pick up that person.
The bus will go specifically to pick up that person. Now, the routes are optimized the day before. This is part of the reason why people are asked to make a reservation the day before, is it allows CAT to actually put together good routes efficiently. You know how UPS doesn't just drive, like, they don't take all the packages they need to deliver and deliver them by alphabetical order by the name of the person getting the package. They actually put together an optimized route so that they can use their driver and their vehicle efficiently. CAT does something similar at a smaller scale, which is, we have this person going here and this person going there and this, they're also going there but at a later time, and figures out if they can get multiple people on the same bus without causing people to go a terribly long distance out of their way to pick up somebody else.
You'll be able to make left turns like UPS.
Do we not make left turns?
I'm not real, this is all new to me, so excuse me for not being really well versed in this. So you send a bus that uses a lot.
And sometimes it's a van.
Sometimes
There's
it's
a range of
okay.
sizes. There's a big bus,
So I-
there's some smaller buses, then there's some vans,
Okay.
yeah.
So that's kind of where I was going, because sending a bus to pick up one person way out here, number one, sounds pretty darn expensive. I'm thinking that Uber might be less expensive. And so I would be curious as to why something like an Uber to pick up one person might not be more cost-effective than sending out a bus, even a van, although now that you mention it, that sounds.
Well, keep in mind, the operating cost of transit arises mostly from the human staff doing the work, rather than from gas or tires or things like that. So actually, a big bus with one driver and a van with one driver, the cost isn't that different, because it's really the driver that is the cost center, rather than the size of the vehicle. So that's something to keep in mind. So you don't save much money. Like, I often end up working for transit agencies that say, couldn't you save some money by replacing all those big buses with little buses? And I say, only if you can replace your big drivers with little drivers and then pay your little drivers less. Because it's really not the buses, it's really the drivers that are the driver of operating costs, so to speak.
So are you looking at replacing those drivers with driverless vehicles?
That is
in
certainly
here?
far on the horizon. No, that is far beyond our horizon.
Just
now,
curious.
since you're asking so many wonderful questions, I would like to skip ahead.
I have a question.
Please.
So it appears that Dial-A-Ride and the paratransit often share the same vehicle by that service. So does this map, so it seems like people with disabilities could use either service.
Yes,
Do they
and
typically choose Dial-A-Ride or paratransit?
they don't have to make a choice. They just call CAT. The Dial-A-Ride paratransit difference, it only exists in this legal regulatory aspect. It doesn't exist on the ground. It doesn't exist in anybody's real life. Would you agree? Customers, it's an eligibility issue. Customers are calling CAT and they're saying, I want to go, and CAT says, okay, we're taking you. Now, that person may be a paratransit customer or a Dial-A-Ride customer.
Okay.
It's going to matter later when I show you the alternatives, which is why I'm explaining it, but it doesn't, the customers don't have a different experience.
So I was just looking at the different colors here. You have customer with disability and general
Yeah.
public, so.
And they're on the same bus, they're having a very similar experience. Now, here's a nuance. If you want to go to Oregon City, you must be a paratransit customer. You must have a disability that qualifies you for paratransit in order to get taken to Oregon City. Oregon City is not within the general public Dial-A-Ride area.
It's
And
only in the urban growth boundary of Canton.
Right, Dial-A-Ride's just within the urban growth boundary. Now, please look at page 37 of the Choices Report. It's in my presentation, but it's there. Now the audience can enjoy it as well. Okay, this is a diagram showing by bus all of the trips made on a Monday morning, or Monday, and this is Dial-A-Ride and paratransit together. So if you look down the left-hand side, you'll see vehicle, 2, 3, new bus, 18, Star Trans Cutaway. These are buses, Arbach. These are names of buses. And then you can see what each bus has done as the hours of the day progressed. And you'll see pickup locations in gray and drop-off locations in red. So you can see that the very first thing that bus number 3, new bus, did is it picked someone up at 1315 Northeast 15th and dropped them off at Club Fit. And there's actually a little colored line between the gray and red text. It's a very, very short line because this is a very small town. But that line is the length of the trip, the driving time. So now if you go to about 12:30 p.m. for 3, new bus, you'll see someone got picked up on Southeast 7th Place. And then they have a little violet-colored purplish line to iHealth Northwest. So that's a longer drive. So you can see that line is longer. And so what we did this for a whole week, sort of to get a visual impression, and also we got some data out of this. What we were curious about, it was how much of the time are people really alone in the bus or the van. So their experience is more like that of a taxi, although they had to reserve it in advance. And how often are people sharing a vehicle? Because public transit is really a shared vehicle service. That's where its efficiencies come from, is multiple people with different destinations sharing a vehicle at least part of the way there. So we asked the question, how much are people sharing a vehicle? And what you end up seeing is that people are not sharing vehicles very much. Sometimes, though, people are all going to the same place. So you'll have a group of people leave the library and they go together to the adult center, or vice versa. But for the most part, a lot of the travel is actually a vehicle acting more like a taxi. So does this help you picture a little bit what's happening? Like if you can follow this number 3 bus as it does its work day, driving each of these people to and from places? Okay. This, again, is going to matter later on, so I appreciate you leading me into such detail. All right, so Dial-A-Ride and Paratransit are really one service in terms of customers' experience, but as I mentioned, and this is on page 35 of your report, only paratransit extends as far as Oregon City, and that's from an agreement that Canby and TriMet have been maintaining for many years. That Canby will deliver paratransit customers to certain key destinations in Oregon City. Essentially, places that they can't go in Canby. Like, you can't go to the grocery store in Oregon City, but certainly to hospital, medical services. Clackamas Community College is a very important destination there. So that's the service that's currently offered. Fixed route, Route 99, which is both express and local. Dial-A-Ride and Paratransit. That's the suite of services CAT currently offers. Now, CAT used to offer more fixed route service. So now I'm showing you a chart, and this is on page 26 of your report, of transit service levels in Canby, the total transit system, how much service was put into it from 2002 until 2016. That orange line is the fixed route system. So Route 99, there used to be service to Wilsonville also, and there were fixed routes inside Canby, fixed routes circulating inside Canby. That orange line reflects how much service was on the street, and as you can see, it sort of peaked around 2009, 2008. Major service cuts were put in place in 2011. That green line is paratransit. Paratransit was offered right from the beginning. But then, in 2011, when the local fixed route was cut, the paratransit was turned into paratransit plus general public Dial-A-Ride. Because people no longer had this local fixed route in town, so if a 17-year-old wanted to go across town or home from high school or something, there was no longer that circulating route, but it's now replaced with Dial-A-Ride, so they could ride the Dial-A-Ride. So Canby used to have just paratransit. You could only ride it if you had a disability. But now we have Dial-A-Ride plus paratransit. And that change was made in 2012 after the service cut. So the other thing you can see here is that now the amount of service supplied as fixed scheduled transit routes and as Dial-A-Ride or paratransit, what we call demand responsive, it's about the same amount of each, the same quantity of each. The Canby transit budget is basically split 50-50 between scheduled routes, and demand responsive, dial-a-ride type service, 50/50. But it wasn't 50/50 before. It wasn't 50/50 in 2003, and it wasn't really 50/50 until after 2011. So that ratio has really changed. So that's a different kind of transit system than can be started with. Now, here's something else to look at in terms of history, is the ridership. The orange line is ridership on the fixed routes, which, again, peaked in 2008 or 2009 and declined after the service cuts, also declined a little bit after the instigation of a fare, because transit used to be free. Paratransit ridership has been fairly flat, and then the general public dial-a-ride plus paratransit ridership has also been fairly flat. And you can also see that fixed route ridership has always been much higher than paratransit. That is totally natural. That is not because the paratransit is failing. If you just picture what the paratransit or dial-a-ride van is doing, it is driving to and from individual people's requested places. It is not physically possible to do that for more than 5 people an hour. But if you run a bus in a straight line through an urban place, you can easily have 30, 40, 50, 60 people get on in an hour and not break a sweat. So we're talking about completely different technologies that have the ability to get completely different levels of ridership. So keep that in mind. If you want high ridership, paratransit or dial-a-ride could never do what a fixed route could do. But it does things that a fixed route can't do, like go to people's homes and go to where they want, when they want. Yeah.
Is paratransit free?
No, paratransit is not free. Remind me the fare on paratransit? $1 for everything. And I believe what you are allowed by federal law is to charge double the fare on paratransit that you do on your fixed route. So that's the limit. So you can't charge a lot more, but you could charge a little more, reflecting that it's, in a sense, a higher level of service.
So is the fixed route 50 cents?
The fixed route is $1.
So everything's $1.
Everything's $1. Very simple. Okay, so ridership relative to cost. I should mention, ridership is not the only goal of transit, but it is one that we are often asked about. So I will talk about the other goals of transit in a moment. So here are the 2 basic groups of services that Canby offers today. Route 99 in the top row. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have a paged reference for you. Route 99 in the top row, and then dial-a-ride and paratransit in the bottom row. There's a certain amount of service supplied to both of them. I said it's about 50/50. It's actually probably more like 54/46 or something, a little bit more on the fixed route side. And then the fixed route gets more boardings, as I showed you in the graph. And so the number of boardings per hour of service, in other words, ridership relative to cost, is about 9.8 on Route 99 and 2.4 on dial-a-ride and paratransit. And
Is that on a 24-hour day?
well, service is only out there from 6 a.m. to, I can't remember when the last Route 99 run is, but this is actually a whole year's worth of data. This is a year's worth of service, a year's worth of boardings. So this is the average over the 2015-2016 year. This is totally normal. Not the actual, I don't mean that the numbers exactly are normal, but the ratio of the productivity of your fixed route to the productivity of your dial-a-ride, totally normal. Like I said, there's just a mathematical difference between what a fixed route can do and what dial-a-ride can do. So, but this you can also lead yourself to thinking about this in terms of cost per boarding, which is why people start to think about, well, gosh, could we be more effective if we gave people taxi vouchers or used Uber? So if you just simply take the operating cost per hour and look at how many boardings you're doing per hour, then you can estimate how much each one-way trip costs CAT. So a one-way trip on Route 99 costs about $6, and a one-way trip on dial-a-ride or paratransit costs about $25.
And then we charge $1.
We charge $1 for everything. Again, this is normal. This is not different from other small city and rural transit systems. But it's something that everybody needs to be aware of when they make decisions. Now, what about if we look just at Route 99? Because Route 99, the 2 halves are different. There are 19 trips a day to Oregon City? 18, thank you. It's in here. I just don't have a head for numbers, believe it or not. There are 18 trips a day to Oregon City, so that's a lot of frequency. You can actually go to and from Oregon City pretty much when you want, Monday through Friday. And then to Woodburn, there are only 8 trips a day to Woodburn. So there's a lot less service going to Woodburn. But we have the ridership on each half of the route, so we can be curious about which half is more productive or how they compare. And interestingly, they're very similar. Both halves get about 11 boardings per bus round trip. So each time a CAT bus goes up and back to Oregon City, it gets about 11 boardings. Each time it goes down and back to Woodburn, it gets 9.4 boardings. Pretty close. And considering there's so much less service on the Woodburn side, that's actually a lot for Woodburn, because people tend to respond to higher frequency by riding more. So as you increase frequency, you tend to see more people boarding per hour, not just the same number per hour. So we're actually fairly impressed with the Woodburn side in terms of ridership. Now, I'm giving you all these ridership-related statistics, but the thing is, transit does not only serve ridership goals. Transit actually serves a number of goals that come directly into conflict with ridership. And so I want to point those out to you because they matter a lot. So imagine you're in a fictional little city, and your city has these 2 highways. And most of the activity is on the 2 highways. Those little dots are residents and jobs. But you have other roads, and you have smaller numbers of people living on the other roads. And you have, as a transit agency, 18 buses to deploy. That's it. You have 18 buses and 18 drivers that you can put out every day. Where should you put your service? Well, if your elected officials in your community tell you that it's really important to get high ridership, to get as many people as possible on the bus, then maybe you would put your service out like this. You would think like a business, and you would choose which markets you should enter. You wouldn't just put your service anywhere, you'd put it where you think it will be competitive. And you will focus enough of your service so that it is competitive. The straight lines in your town offer density, lots of people and jobs near the bus stops, walkability, a direct transit path that people feel like it's taking them in a straight line where they want to go. So you focus all your service there, and because you're focusing all your service there, it's frequent. All those 18 buses are on just those 2 lines, which means when people walk out to the highway, there's a bus coming soon. That's the maximizing ridership kind of network. And the way you measure your performance is productivity, which is that number I showed you before. How many boardings do we get per hour? What's our ridership relative to our cost? So there are reasons to like this. You get a lot of people on the bus, you get a lot of people to jobs, you're saving people a lot of money, environmental benefits. But what if you or your aunt or your child lives in the right-hand corner at the bottom there and is far from any service at all? Well, then you have reasons to not like this, because they don't have access to any service at all. And maybe you come back to your city council and you say, what have you done? You've completely abandoned this whole neighborhood of our city. And your city council says to the transit planner, oh, go back and fix it. We can't abandon that neighborhood. There are people there who need that service. And so your transit planner will go away and they'll come back with a different kind of network. They'll come back with a network that is aspiring to a coverage goal, some service for everyone. And this is more like what we expect out of government services. We try to serve everyone, even in expensive to serve places. We get more routes so we have a route on every single street. So everybody is close to a bus stop. But because we've divided our 18 buses on so many different lines, none of the routes are coming frequently. Even on the major streets, the bus is still coming only once an hour, once every 2 hours. But we are serving everyone, right? We've been fair, and if anybody, no matter where they live in our town, if they need the service, if they have a severe need for service, there is something there for them. The way we measure our success is access or coverage. How much of our residents and our jobs are near some service at all? And here we could probably say 100%. So we're doing great. The thing is, we wouldn't get very much ridership because most people are busy. they work multiple jobs, they need to get their kids from childcare, and they do not have time to wait for a bus that comes every hour. Or even if they didn't wait when the bus picks them up, they're going to wait when the bus drops them off 50 minutes early for work. So most people are not interested in infrequent transit. And if we spread our resources out, we're spreading them thin, and most people won't ride. But everyone who needs to ride will be able to ride. So that's a big trade-off. Ridership and coverage goals are in conflict, even though they are both valuable, even though we probably, all of us individually, can feel that we would value both of them. But when you are running a transit agency and you have a fixed budget, the more you do of one, the less you do of the other. The more you focus on the corridors, the less you're spreading service out to get close to everyone, and vice versa. So this is one of the hardest choices to make in transit planning, and there is no correct answer. Every community I work for finds a different way to balance these goals. Some go a little more towards ridership, some go a little more towards coverage, because I don't have an answer. They're both important, they're both valued, but how you balance them in your own community is really very specific to your community. So, back to existing conditions. I want to mention a couple of things that we've noticed about existing conditions for transit here. One is there are some barriers to ridership and access in this city. One is language. There's so many Latino community members in Canby who are interested in transit and even riding Route 99, but they're not riding dial-a-ride and paratransit in large numbers. And it could be, I think it's a big part of it's probably language. The Route 99 bus is coming whether you call someone or not and have a conversation with them or not. So if you're not confident about your English, if you're not sure that they'll have an interpreter for you when you call, you can at least show up for Route 99 and it's going to come, and you know how to get on the bus. So fixed routes are a bit more translation proof than dial-a-ride and paratransit, which require more of a conversation. It may also be that the way that the Latino community in Canby works, they're providing one another more rides. I don't really know. I think we can theorize, but we know that there's a language barrier there. Another thing is complexity. Route 99 today is fairly complex in terms of which buses go all the way through Canby to Oregon City and which just turn around in Canby. The schedule is not very easy to read, so that may prevent some people from trying it. Really big barrier is weekends. The lack of weekend service is a huge barrier, because if you think about who has an incentive to ride transit, well, low-income people, low-income workers. But if you work in the service industry and you're not making very much money, it is all hands on deck on Saturday and Sunday. So if the bus can't get you there on Saturday and Sunday, you basically have to get a car. And once you've gotten a car, you're not riding the bus Monday through Friday either. So the lack of weekend service is a big barrier to ridership. It's also a big barrier for coverage and access, because people need to meet their social service needs on Saturday, or go shopping, or see their friends, or go to church, and not being able to do that on the bus is also a pretty big barrier for them. So we have some public input from 2013 that's interesting. This is on page 40 of your report. The public was asked which are most important to you of a number of service ideas, and it's kind of fun to look at this for a little while. There's a lot of neat stuff in here, but a couple of interesting things I noticed. One is that many people said, we want a local fixed route. That's the first bar, that yellow, on paper it's lime green bar. We want a local fixed route, like we used to have. I also thought it was interesting that Spanish speakers, or people who took the survey in Spanish, were more likely to say they wanted weekend service, Saturday and Sunday. That's in blue and orange, the next two bars. Then the people who took the survey in English. Spanish speakers were also pretty interested in service to Woodburn. That's the green bar, 3 from the bottom.
So I'm curious as to actually who was asked these questions. I mean, were the people that were asked, were they people that actually used the service, or
Right, I can't.
It was a combination. There was a lot of users. We could parse that out, but this is everybody who responded.
Actually, I think that's an important piece of information to have, is where you're getting your input. So if you have 500 people that have responded to answer these questions, and 499 of them actually ride the bus, and only one of them is, just your everyday Joe, then that kind of skews the results towards people that, not that there's anything good or bad about it, I'm just saying that it, I would be curious as to how people in the community, other than people that ride the bus, feel about CAT. So
Yeah.
that would be.
Yeah, splitting this by the source would be interesting. You might see different priorities based on whether people use the system now or not. Yeah. So you can see and hear some conflicts because CAT has a fixed budget and can't do everything. In fact, because CAT is not getting any more money anytime soon, anything that CAT adds must be paid for by reducing something else or becoming more efficient at something. And yet, here are people telling us a number of things that they would really like CAT to add. So in this Transit Master Plan, we are going to ask people to focus on two choices. And they relate to some of the answers you'll see here. People said they want a local fixed route. They also said they wanted more frequency to Woodburn. Some people said they wanted more frequency to Oregon City. We are not going to deal with Saturday and Sunday service as a focus of this Transit Master Plan, even though we know it's really important. But we are going to ask people to focus on this issue of the local fixed route within Canby and service to Oregon City and service to Woodburn. So here are the key choices for this Transit Master Plan cycle. First of all, how should Canby balance its investment in, on the one hand, demand responsive services like dial-a-ride and paratransit, and on the other hand, fixed routes? We know that they have very different capacities for ridership, but we also know that they have very different abilities to deliver coverage. The demand responsive services like dial-a-ride and paratransit provide a great deal of coverage, but very low ridership. The fixed route doesn't provide very much coverage because it only goes where it goes, but it is able to get more ridership. So how should these investments be balanced? And I'll keep reading my slide, then I'll go back to the picture. Remember, the balance has really changed since CAT started. The balance today is around 50-50. It didn't used to be like that. It's become 50-50 because when CAT had to cut service, it cut service on the fixed routes. Then, the other thing is that demand response is just mathematically always going to have lower ridership. So I don't want you to feel like there's some magical thing that can be done to get more ridership out of demand response. There are small things that can be done to get a little more ridership, but it's never going to be like fixed route. So let's just look at the balance again. The ratio between the orange line and the green line is the ratio of service between these two general types. So you can see how much it has changed over the years. It's been everything it could be, and now it's 54-46 or something like that. So that's the first key choice. And then the second key choice is contingent on the first one. If Canby wants to shift some of its investment back towards fixed route service, then there's another question, which is, should that service be added to intercity routes like Route 99 so that there are more trips to Oregon City or more trips to Woodburn, or should a local circulator within the city be restored? Now, if your priority is high ridership, be aware that local circulators tend to get less ridership than intercity routes. There are exceptions, but in general, local circulators, because they go in a circle, they don't come very frequently, And because many people, it's easy to just walk or bike or drive instead of waiting for them, they tend to not get a lot of ridership. But they do tend to get more ridership than a dial-a-ride service. And also, they allow people more, I don't think independence is quite the right word, but it's a different experience taking a scheduled local bus within your town than it is calling and making a reservation for something tomorrow. They certainly allow people more spontaneity. They can ride the bus because they know it's coming in the next hour. They don't have to call and make a reservation and ask someone if they can ride the bus. So it's a different experience for local travel. So those are the two key choices: how to balance the demand response services and the fixed route services, and then if there's a desire for a shift towards more fixed route services, whether those should be intercity services or a circulator within town. So we made some little diagrams that people can look at to understand these. These start on page 49 of your report. This is alternative 0. This is status quo. Keep what you got. There are 19 daily bus trips between Canby and Oregon City, 8 daily bus trips between Canby and Woodburn. There's the Wilsonville service, which again is not provided by Canby. And then citywide paratransit and dial-a-ride. And so this assumes that the citywide paratransit and dial-a-ride plus those paratransit trips to and from Oregon City would stay at the same productivity, 2.4 riders per hour on those demand responsive services, which is, it's a little bit low for a town of this size. Considering that CAT has to go to Oregon City, it's not that low, but it is a little bit lower than what you'd expect, that 2.4 boardings per hour. Now, the next two alternatives I'm going to show you, they do not assume that fewer people ride the dial-a-ride and fewer people ride the paratransit. They assume that the paratransit and dial-a-ride become more efficient and deliver the same number of rides using a little bit less service, and the difference in service goes into fixed routes. So this doesn't mean people have to stop riding the dial-a-ride and the paratransit, but it might mean that they share trips more, share a bus more, which means being driven out of direction sometimes and having a longer trip. It might also mean that sometimes when they call, more often they're told, oh, we can't take you then, can we take you an hour later, an hour before? So it might change the experience and certainly the convenience, but it does not necessarily mean that fewer people would have to use the dial-a-ride or the paratransit for this to work. So in alternative 1, which is on the next page, there would be the addition of this local circulator in town, same amount of intercity service, but then the paratransit and the general public dial-a-ride, instead of doing 2.4 boardings per hour, it would do 3.1 boardings per hour. So it would become a little bit more efficient. Same number of people, fewer hours of service, more boardings per hour. The paratransit to Oregon City would stay exactly the same. That is a legal obligation to TriMet. That doesn't change. And then alternative 2 is actually more Route 99 service. So no local circulator, but more 14 daily trips to Woodburn instead of 8. So the schedule to Woodburn would become all day. Instead of being peak only, it would be all day long. And then 23 daily trips to Oregon City. So more frequency going to Oregon City. But again, more efficient dial-a-ride paratransit. Those are the 3 alternatives, and so I hope I've made clear that I don't have the correct answer for Canby, and I tell you, I have absolutely no idea what people are going to say they want, because these, again, are really choices of community values. These are all about why CAT exists in the first place. Why is this community running transit to begin with? What are its deepest goals for transit? So that's what our process is really focused on, is getting that information to give CAT clear direction so that as they go forward for the next couple of years, they know how people want them to make these trade-offs within their limited budget. So the next steps and the timeline we're going to follow, we're starting public outreach tonight, basically, and then we're going to be doing it through the beginning of March. We're doing our outreach in English and in Spanish. We're going to have a stakeholder workshop for not just existing transit riders, but anybody who has a stake in Canby's transit future. And that will be in February sometime. I think representatives from the Planning Commission would be welcome to attend. If you're interested, please let us know. That will be on a Saturday, and it will be 4 or 5 hours long, but we will serve food. And it will
And
be
water,
fun.
which we didn't get tonight.
We will serve water. We'll serve water, and it will be really fun. The workshop is really fun. We're also going to be doing a web survey and a survey of riders on the buses. And then we're presenting to City Council. We're also presenting to the Transit Advisory Committee and some other groups. So we're just at the very beginning here, and I appreciate you giving me so much time and letting me go into such detail and your excellent questions. And I'm happy to take more questions now, if you like.
I have a question. I don't know if you can answer it, but I'm sure the ladies from CAT can. Now, when we went from TriMet to CAT, what I understand is it's the business taxes, is that what pays for transit?
Partially, yeah.
And it was cheaper for us to do our own than go with TriMet, right?
Well, I wasn't here when the actual decision was made, but as I understand it, it was people wanted more local control. Because TriMet only came down to Grant Street, turned around and went back. And there was, they only served paratransit in that 3/4 mile requirement. They did, whereas CAT serves the whole
And
is the way I understand.
and the cost was
Well, yeah.
pretty
Yeah,
much
I
the
don't
same
know. I've
even?
never seen anything about what the costs were. I know that TriMet basically gave the payroll tax, got rid of it, and then CAT started collecting it. And at the time, it was around $700,000. Immediately started getting grants also in addition to it. So we do have more funds than TriMet had when they were here. Overall.
But I also heard too that local businesses who we appreciate with their payroll, that's a lot of our funding, and the businesses do not feel they were given the benefit of their money.
And well, it's required one or the other no matter what, right? So,
I believe so. I think so.
okay, thank you.
The payroll tax rate for TriMet is now approaching point, I think it's 7.5.
And the cost.
And ours is 0.6.
And-
We have not increased the payroll tax rate, but TriMet has continued to increase it and will be at 0.08 within the next few years.
So my point is, no matter how expensive this looks, it would still be cheaper than if it was TriMet.
Yes. Also, because the the cost per hour of service that CAT is providing is much lower than TriMet's cost per hour. And if you picture an hour of a driver driving a bus, and there being a garage with a supervisor and a mechanic and all of the support, an hour of that is cheaper in Canby than in Portland. So CAT's costs are still much lower than TriMet's. So every hour of service you're getting, you're also paying less for it than you would if you're paying TriMet for it.
Why are we, I'm looking at the data of the 2013 survey, and it seems like 80% of people on the Latino side are looking for weekend. Why is that not part of our goal if we're focusing on what 40% of people want instead of what 80% of people want?
When we looked at what the choices should be, I think we didn't choose weekend service simply because we don't have any more money. And it would cost a lot more money to add weekend service because we'd have to add dispatcher and and all the support for those days, and it would cost more than what we're proposing here. It's really a matter of cost. We just don't have the money to do it.
And everything we're showing, these three alternatives, they're all budget neutral, so they're all the same budget. But you could add a local circulating route, you could add some more trips to Route 99 by just making the dial-a-ride and paratransit more efficient without cutting it, without eliminating anything. And to do weekend service, as Julie says, because you would have to hire, right now, there's no one at CAT over the weekend. You'd have to open up CAT all weekend long, dispatchers, supervisors, maintenance, you have to have mechanics on duty. It's so expensive, it would just require gutting existing dial-a-ride, paratransit, and Route 99. So it might actually have, if we had decided to focus on those choices when we were deciding what to focus on, it might have been really, really interesting to do that, but it would have been a very severe contrast between a completely anemic, probably no dial-a-ride, no paratransit, 7 days a week service, and what you have today.
So it doesn't cost a whole lot more to add service to what we're already doing, but to add weekend service would be.
Yeah, you can add an hour or two of service to the weekdays or move it around within the different buckets, and it's not a huge consequence. But opening up shop on Saturday, there's a big startup cost to doing that. Yeah.
So Wilsonville has their own service that comes to Canby, right?
Yes.
And Malala as well?
Yes.
Why, I've noticed that Woodburn does not. And why, and so my question is, if residents of Woodburn are benefiting from this, then maybe it would behoove them to contribute to this and take some of the burden off of, Canby. So that makes sense to me, and so they're getting a free ride, not that $1 is, but you
Yeah.
get a sense of what I'm saying here?
I do. And Woodburn does get some funding, some grants for fixed route transit. They spend it on a circulator in Woodburn, a very, very, very circuitous circulator that goes everywhere in Woodburn once an hour. Yes, I understand what you're saying. Woodburn is actually the meeting point of transit from Salem and transit from Canby. So they are the beneficiaries of being at this point where people could take a bus in either direction. They're also a place where if you're in Canby and you want to go to Salem, Woodburn is where you would make that connection. So Canby's path to Salem is through Woodburn. So you might think about how Woodburn can host that path, even if they're not paying dollars into it.
So I would also assume then that Salem, if that's the case, which I did not know, so Salem has buses that the people of Salem are paying for to come to Woodburn. Canby, the citizens of Canby and the businesses of Canby are paying to go to Woodburn, and yet Woodburn is not stepping up and paying any of their, to use a phrase that I find disgusting, fair share. So it would seem obvious to me that if you need more funds to do some of these things, that you would want to go pound on the people, the city council of Woodburn and say, hey,
Well,
step up.
something else to be aware of is that if there are residents of Woodburn who are riding Route 99 to Canby, it's probably because they either work for a business here or they're shopping here. And so it may be that businesses are actually fine with being connected to Woodburn if it helps their workers connect from affordable housing to their job, or if it helps bring them shoppers.
But it could also go the other way with Canby residents going down to the Woodburn Outlet Mall,
Sure.
which is, one thing.
I mean, this is actually, transit across boundaries is always like this. You're always wondering, wait a second, is this better for us or is it better for you?
I just want it to be equitable.
And the truth,
I don't care about
the truth is with transit, it's normally better for both of you to be connected because our economy really is based on people being able to get someplace, to get the job that they need, to get the workers they need, to go to the school, to shop where they want to shop. And it's that free movement of people that makes the economy flow. So it always, I mean, I've certainly seen cases where one agency is really like supporting the other by running service there, but more often it's the case that from whatever side of the line you're on, both are better off for being connected, I guess I'll say.
Agree with that, but I would also say that it's better that people, pay fairly.
Yes,
and
sure.
equitably for that kind of service.
Yeah.
As the citizens of Canby, I'm not knowing any of this, now I'm feeling like I'm being taken advantage of.
If it makes you feel any better, Salem Kaiser Transit is starting a Highway 99E study to look at the whole corridor from Salem to Oregon City. And so there may be some findings from that study that make this corridor better, including ways to share costs, ways to share fair revenues that are equitable. So,
Is that something that we could go to Woodburn and say, if you want to help do a Saturday route? Because that would help them?
because of their
Saturday shopping?
outlets. Yeah. That's a very interesting idea. I think, yes, that is something that could be done.
Who does that?
Who does what?
Who goes and talks to
Who
them?
goes and talks to them?
I think that's isn't that your job?
Can we go to Woodburn and say, hey, would you help fund a Saturday Route 99 to get people to the outlet mall?
I think it helps to understand that Woodburn doesn't have a payroll tax, so they don't have that revenue. They actually fund their system with the general fund from the city and grants. So they don't have a lot of resources, and we just go to the edge. We go to the Buy Mart and turn around and go back. And if you want to go to the outlet mall, you have to ride the Woodburn system. We don't take people to the outlet mall, sort of for the reasons that you're talking about.
And then
We try
Salem,
to keep it equitable.
Salem's Transit comes to the Buy Mart also to
So
meet
we meet
Canby.
up.
Buy Mart's a popular meeting place. I'm gonna set up a coffee shop there. So people waiting for the bus can buy my coffee.
But I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to involve folks in that. And I believe that the transit manager from Woodburn will be involved in the 99 study, and those will be things that we'll talk about.
Will we be involved in the 99 study?
It's going to start soon. I'm not sure of the timeline of it, but there will be a public outreach, and I'm sure we'll let you know. Yeah.
So what role will this commission play in this, if any?
Well, this is
I mean, I
not,
appreciate the FYIs, but
yeah, maybe that's a question for you.
I can't answer that.
It's not a land use decision, so you don't have to make a decision about it. We're really just informing you because you make decisions related to the growth and development and, health of Canby, and transit is a big part of that.
well, we appreciate the heads up. That's for sure. I've learned just a ton about CAT. I'm not so sure that it's all good, but yeah. So thank you.
Well, my pleasure. And if you read your report and have further questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch. The easiest way is probably just to email Julie, although the email address for the project is catmasterplan@gmail.com, so you can also email me there. So, thank you very much.
Well, thank you
Thank
for your
you.
time. I've got to get back to figure out how to turn this thing back on.
And you gotta remember your password, too.
Mr. Boatwright saved me.
Came to the rescue.
Okay. So we are now down to the one-year extension of development agreement and conceptual master plan for phases 3 and 4 of the Northwood Estates subdivision.
find my report on it here.
It's page 54.
There it is. Okay, so I think you're all familiar with where Northwoods Phase 1 and 2 are in the northeast part of Canby. And that subdivision was part of a master plan subdivision that consisted of 4 total phases. And there was a development agreement that was signed when that master plan was approved that indicated and understood that there was no way to determine how quickly all 4 phases might develop out. And so they provided an opportunity for there to be an extension of that master plan for however many years we felt was appropriate in order to allow the implementation of that entire master plan over time. And so we have for several years now been extending the master plan so that each individual phase could come in and follow the concept that was originally approved. And as you can imagine, there's some advantages for the community and certainly for the developer to be able to continue to implement what was already planned out and designed. In fact, it makes their submittal just following exactly what the number of lots were, where the streets were going to be exactly. They already had that concept of how all the lots would be served by utilities. And they had the concept in this particular development of where public parks would be. And those public parks have already been dedicated to the city and constructed in the Phase 1 and the Phase 2 sections that are out there today. So there are no other additional parks planned for Phase 3 and 4. So that means Phase 3 and 4, if we continue to implement the master plan, we will be waiving the park system development charge because that was part of the original master plan deal, is that they've already given the park to satisfy the requirement for the entire 4-phase development. We don't have any real reason not to recommend continuing to extend it at this time. The primary criteria in the code is if we've made significant changes in our regulatory structure that we would like to see the new phases incorporate. And there's really nothing in particular that would change if they were to start over and submit a new design that met our new regulations. It wouldn't really change it any. So we're recommending that you just extend this one more year out to February 24th, I believe was the date. And they're planning within a week or so of submitting the application for Phase 3. So we'll be reviewing that before long.
So you need us to move and approve another one-year extension then.
That's right.
And any thoughts?
Better question.
Sure.
How many times are we allowed to approve extensions? Is there a maximum limit of requests?
It's in the development agreement that was assigned with the master plan approval, and it just said any number, but it did say that you had to do it every year, annually. But there was no limit on how many. Again, indicating the flexibility, not knowing how quickly market demand would bring the phases forward, because that's what drives them when you do a large development that way. Is it's based upon what you think you're going to be able to sell in a reasonable time. Since there's a lot of costs up front with a subdivision, so it makes the developers better chance of success if they break it into pieces, since there's so much cost up front that's put in the ground and underground.
We haven't made any major development changes since then.
There has been some changes over time in how drainage is handled, but it's mostly driven from DEQ requirements and such, and it's just more of it's a little stricter to get approval for underground injection. Developers and still taking advantage of those wherever they possibly can.
If I may, I would move to extend the development agreement for one more year.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, there you go, 1 year extension. Now we will move on to the final decisions for Olson and Pierce. LLA /16-09 MLP 16-04, which we discussed this evening. May I have a motion to approve with the conditions that we discussed, with the elimination of, I think it was 3 and 4?
4 and 5.
4 and 5.
And we'll make that change in this.
I make a motion to approve. I don't know what the number is, John. LLA /16-09 and MLP 16-04 with the conditions of approval. Minus 4 and 5.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the Olson Pierce LL5 16-09 MLP 1604. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Final decision on Bristol ZC 16-05. Brian, not everybody was here for that meeting. Can you refresh us on that?
Yeah, this one involved a change of zoning on a property from the R1 zone, low-density residential, to the R2 high-density, and that was located on 548 North Locust Street. And wasn't anything in particular that I recall, and so the findings are pretty darn short. The main criteria are, was all the necessary infrastructure in place to support an increased intensity of use on the property. And the findings was that there was adequate infrastructure to be able to serve that property should it redevelop in any manner. And so there was a recommendation by the Planning Commission to send it to the City Council for approval, and so this is a recommendation from the Planning Commission in this findings.
So the City Council hasn't seen it yet?
They see it on February 1st.
Okay. And I will entertain a motion to approve ZC 16-05.
Mr. Chair, I motion to approve the ZC 16-05 as presented.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Oppose.
Passes. Items of interest from Brian?
So we do list that we do have a meeting on the next regularly scheduled time, which is February 13th. And Dave Epling, our part-time associate planner, is going to be here because I'll be out of town, out of the country, so not out of the country, but out of the states.
Out of the states, but still in the country. That'd be
Off the
Wa-
mainland.
Going to Puerto Rico?
Yeah, that would be Washington DC. Hawaii.
Well, that's a state.
I know, that's why I had to recount when I started.
Puerto Rico. Okay. Then we will welcome Mr. Epling. Items of interest from the Planning Commission. Anybody have anything they'd like to bring up?
Mr. Commissioner, I will not be here on the 13th. I'll be in
You'll be
the United States. But,
You won't be vacationing with Brian.
I won't be vacationing. It's, I've got a work thing that'll be out.
So this is actually the day before Valentine's Day. So are you taking, I mean,
Didn't see that coming.
yeah, most men do not.
Yeah.
I do. So,
Huh.
okay, so you will not be here everybody else will be here? Okay.
Here.
Then, anything else that you would like to bring up? Then I will entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, there we go. Thank you very much.